history of Mrs. Knight. She was born in 1864 in Galena, Illinois. Her name was Laura Josephine Small, and her father was a corporate attorney. And in 1882, she married James Moore, who was an attorney in her father's firm. And it's right when people started investing in various companies, and she and her husband ended up with controlling interest in places like Rock Island Rail, Union Pacific, Diamond Match, Continental Can, National Biscuit Company, to name a few. They spent most of their married life in Illinois with a summer home at Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Then in 1916, they moved to California and bought a home in Montecito next to Santa Barbara. Shortly after that time, her husband passed away and she was left with $10 million. She was single for a few years, and then she married Harry Knight, who was a wealthy stockbroker. And they were the prime backers of Charles Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic during their marriage. Second marriage was not successful, and when she started Vikingsholm, she was a single woman in her mid-60s, and this was the last big project she took on. She was very wealthy, very independent for her time, and she was also kind and generous. She gave to a lot of church groups, youth groups, had a college scholarship fund for women, and when she passed away, she left $1,000 for each year of service to every one of her servants, which was quite a bit of money in 1945. Now what you're looking at in here and what you'll see in the main part of the house is almost all original to Mrs. Knight. We're very lucky that the owners after her did not dispose of the furnishings. So some of the things she brought back from her trip include the table in front of the window. That's a chieftain's table, 17th century, from a Viking's castle in Norway. And she also brought back this three-legged peasant chair from Finland. Who can tell me why it only has three legs? I've been getting really creative answers.
Because one of them got educated?
Oh, that's a good one. I haven't quite had that wording before. I like that. I've gotten birthing chair, all different kinds of things. It's because most peasant homes were on an uneven rock or dirt surface, so it was easier to get a solid seat with only the three legs. Now, many of the things that she saw on her trip that she liked were in museums, and of course she couldn't purchase them. So she had the architect make drawings, and they were reproduced down to any scratches that existed on the original piece. So one of those reproductions is the Swedish bridal table in the center of the room. That's something that a Swedish peasant bride would receive from her parents upon her marriage. Would have the bride and groom's initials, year of their marriage, and then be the prized piece of furniture in their new home together. She also reproduced these dragon beams. She had seen those in the Vikings' castle. And in a castle, these beams would signify the area where the chieftain and his trusted advisors would be. Women and children were only allowed on the outside of the room. She was quite interested in the Vikings, and if you look closely, you can find over 60 dragon heads throughout the property. The piano is a Steinway she had commissioned, 1929 living room grand, made out of mahogany. And it is unusual in that it has 6 legs on it. She did not play the piano, but sometimes she'd have musical guests and they would entertain after dinner. Then notice the paneling on the walls. It's irregular widths because it comes from old growth timber. It's an inch thick, and the walls as well as the ceilings are treated with a water-based stain covered with banana oil and a white wax, and they are in their original condition from 1929. Straight through the living room is the library. That's in the tower, and that was really Mrs. Knight's private space. That's where she'd meet with her secretary every morning to go over financial affairs or the cooks to plan the menus, and she'd have the door closed. And sometimes in the afternoon, she'd invite guests in to play cards. In that room is a round cashmere rug that Mrs. Knight purchased for $40,000 in 1929. And for a little perspective, it only cost $125,000 to build all of Vikingsholm. So she must have loved that rug. Wow. And it's hard to see. You can kind of see it walking back and forth. It's a neutral color in the middle and then reddish and maroon rings on the outside. Doorway behind you leads into the dining room. Dining room table would expand to seat 10. And one of her traditions was having finger bowls at each place sitting with fresh wildflowers floating in them. And the maids tried to get a different kind of flower for each day of the week over a 2-week period. Straight through the doorway you can see the serving pantry. That's 4 steps down from the kitchen, and that's where the cooks would bring the food. And then the maids would serve the guests from there. And then kitty corner through the dining room is the morning room. Best view of that is from the outside. Did anybody look in before the tour? If not, be sure to look afterwards. I think it's the most unique room in the house. Stone floors, plaster walls, and ceilings painted in Nebraska style. A wonderful view of Fanette Island, and it was just a place for the guests to have coffee or tea in the morning before breakfast. So we came in the back door. We're going to go out the front door right now, and again, you will be able to come back in. And as you go up these 2 steps on your right, you will see Selma. And Selma was a house rooming gift to Mrs. Knight from the architect when he completed the house.